And so by inset 4, we're seeing the expansion of those of the ball of hot particles. So the video, the diameter of the fireball appears to expand somewhat. Then the diameter of the fireball, as you see in 5, appears to compress a bit. That's an illusion, because what's happening is the very hot particles from the fireball have become stationary in space. They're no longer moving, but they're cooling. And as they cool, they radiate less light. And so the fireball appears to get smaller and smaller and smaller in diameter. So this is characteristic of an explosion of a explosion of high explosives detonating in the air. And this characteristic makes it unmistakable to identify explosions in the air, and also ground explosions, because when the explosion, when the warhead reaches the ground, if it's not intercepted, it explodes and it creates this big flash of light. And we'll see in the videos that the flash of light, which is centered on the ground, it's not in the air, so we know it's a ground detonation, it illuminates the clouds from below, or illuminates the whole video frame. So we can clearly see ground explosions, which indicate failed intercepts, and we can clearly see intercepts, which are blinding fireballs in the sky. And what we will see when we look at the videos is that there are only a few fireballs that are blinding in the sky, and very, very few of them. Otherwise, we see warheads just coming to the ground, and we see the ground detonations, just the sky lit up from the ground as the detonating warheads on the ground illuminate clouds from below, or illuminate the sky because they're so intense. That is a clear and unambiguous record. There's nothing to debate about here, nothing at all. The American Physical Society agrees that there's nothing to debate about here. This tells you what the intercept rate is. And what we will see in the videos is 50 or 100 or 30 missiles coming in, hitting the ground and exploding, and maybe 1 or 2 or 3 fireballs in the sky. Well, this tells you something extremely important. This tells you that the intercepts against ballistic missiles by Patriot PAC-2 and Patriot PAC-3 are very low. The intercept rate is 2 or 3% in the current situation, the Gulf War of 2026, and it was near zero in the Gulf War of 1991. So let's go to slide number 6. And I'll show you the difference between the Patriot PAC-2 and the Patriot PAC-3. And we will look at a very short video of a Patriot PAC-2 intercept attempt in 2026 over Tel Aviv. And we will know it's a Patriot PAC-2 because the Patriot PAC-2 has a warhead in it. If you notice, if you look at the text above this, the Patriot PAC-2, which is the large diameter missile, at the top of the round comparisons, you see at the left the radome, the terminal guidance section, which is a small radio receiver that tries to home on reflected radio waves that are illuminated from the ground radar, and then the warhead section. And the warhead section contains a large warhead, and the warhead is designed to create fragments that come at high speed, nearly 2 kilometers per second, off the, like a shotgun, spherical shotgun, and detonate the warhead on the incoming missile. Now, the problem with this system, well, let me just first go on here and tell you what. Down below, we have the Patriot PAC-3. The Patriot PAC-3 does not have a warhead. So it has a very small explosive device, but it's not easily seen. If you look at first the radome, then you have a Ka band seeker, then you have guidance electronics, and then you have an attitude control system. The attitude control system is a series of explosive charges that will detonate at key times, and the point of the charge, the detonating charges, is to kick the Patriot PAC-3 into an angular orientation so it can maneuver fast. The fins at the end, at the back, cannot cause the interceptor to rotate quickly enough for it to maneuver to hit targets that are coming in, that it's trying to hit from the front. So basically, the winglets at the back are secondary in the maneuver capability relative to the attitude control system. So let's go to slide 7, and I'll just point out an important fact. What slide 7 shows you, on the left in red, upper left in red, it shows you a Patriot PAC-2 interceptor. And emanating from the explosive back end of the Patriot PAC-2 is a vector diagramming showing you the movement of the fragments from the warhead. So let me go through the arithmetic here so it's clear. Let's imagine that the Scud, because there were Scuds being fired from Iraq in the Gulf War of 1991, the Scud is stationary in space, and the Patriot is coming at the Scud at the combined speed of the Scud and the Patriot. So the Patriot is coming at the Scud 1.5 kilometers per second, and the Scud is coming at the Patriot at 2.5 kilometers, or over 2 kilometers per second. So the combined crossing speed is about 3.5 kilometers per second. If we just imagine we're on the Scud, it's not moving. So the Patriot is crossing at 3.5 kilometers per second relative to the stationary Scud. So when the warhead detonates, some of these fragments are going perpendicular to the Scud warhead, to the Patriot PAC-2 interceptor. But the Patriot PAC-2 interceptor is moving 3.5 kilometers per second crossing speed. So the combined vector is pointing forward. So when we detonate the warhead near where we think we've detected the front end of the Scud, we would have to detect the front end of the warhead instantaneously for a fragment to happen to hit the front end of the Patriot, of the Scud. I'm sorry. So what happens is unless the Patriot interceptor detonates just at the right time when the Patriot interceptor is crossing the Scud, the fragments will go into the back of the Patriot of the Scud, and they will hit the back of the Scud. They may damage the airframe, but the warhead will break off and go onto the ground and detonate. So I can show that in another video, but I'm not going to show that here. I have shown that in an earlier. We can do that some other time if people are really interested in this event. But if we go to slide 8, we show the different Patriot PAC-3. And the important thing about the Patriot PAC-3 is if you look right off the nose, there's a bluish area that is detailed above, and that is a radar that's in the front end of the Patriot PAC-3. That radar is, there you go. go ahead. You can go to the next one. That radar sends out two beams. The beams are of relatively wide width, maybe a degree or so, but the two beams, you can, if you look at the center, the crossing point between the two beams, and you measure the intensity in each of the beams, the beam, you can tell the beam. Let's say, look at the red beam. If the intensity of the target in the red beam is significantly lower than the intensity in the blue beam, then you know that you can interpolate between the blue and the red intensities and find the middle of the two beams, and you can tell to maybe 10 times the precision, the width of these beams, or even 20 times the width of the beam, where the front end, where the point of the incoming target is. And you want to hit the point, and because of that, you use these two beams and interpolate between the intensities you measure between. This is a common technique used in radar. It's very important because it allows you to greatly increase the precision of the location capability of the radar relative to its natural resolution. Okay, so let's look at, so when we look at video 1, what we're going to see is, when you start, all right, pause it, please. Can you pause it? Okay, all right, good, you paused it in a good spot. Okay, what we're going to see is a Patriot PAC-2, and the reason we know it's a Patriot PAC-2 is because we're going to see in the explosion of the Patriot PAC-2 warhead. What we're seeing in the sky now is the explosion of a PAC-2. If that were a PAC-3, we would not see any explosion. We would not see it at all. We would only see its presence if it hit the front end of the ballistic missile, which you do see to the right of the Patriot PAC-2 miss, because it's bright and it's luminous. Notice to the in front of the bright ball from the ballistic missile, which has a contrail behind it, there's a very small, dim point of light. That's the second Patriot PAC-2 that's been shot at this target. So if you just skip just a little more, there you see the Patriot PAC-2 exploding. Now you can't tell, because the fireballs are overlapping, what the outcome is. But if you go on, if you just let the video go on, you can see the missile goes on, and if we just let it go on, you see it goes to the ground and explodes. There you go. Now, if you just let this video play further, we're going to see a slow motion version of this intercept, so the audience can see everything in more detail. There's the explosion. There's the second Patriot PAC-2. There's a contrail that's of the PAC-2 interceptor that's illuminated by the light from the incoming warhead, and then we see the ground explosion from the warhead. So the video tells us everything about what happened here. There were two clear misses. We couldn't tell from the second miss whether or not the fireball was successful in damaging, in destroying the warhead on the incoming missile, but we saw the missile just went on to the ground, so it was clearly not destroyed, and it detonated on the ground. Everything we need to know was in the video. So now the question comes, what is the evidence that this system has a 90% intercept rate with the PAC-3? The PAC-3 has a different phenomenology somewhat, because we can't see the explosion of the PAC-3 because it's basically a hit to kill interceptor. So if it flies by the missile, what we will see is no detonation of the warhead. That's what we will see. So let's see what we can see. Let's go to video 2. So here, could you stop that for just a second? Sorry. Let me point out that unlike in the Gulf War of 1991, where we were restricted to videos of relatively low quality from the video cameras of the time, and also, what the press happened to see. Now, in the Gulf War of 2026, we have people with all these very high quality video cameras in their on their phones. So we have very high quality video, and we have lots of high quality video. So this is much more detail. And so the question that the audience should have in the back of its mind as we watch all these video clips that I put together here is, what am I seeing? And if I have a 90% intercept rate, why is the sky not lit up with explosions? Why is that the case? If we can see an intercept, and I'll show you we can see an intercept. So let's go. All right, so we're seeing all these warheads come in, more and more of them, and I'm going to play the net. We'll just keep it going. This video will all of a sudden go slow. We'll go into a slow motion sequence. We'll go back to the first view of the attack sequence, but we'll have it in slow motion. All right, here we are, the second view of the attack. It's real time until we're going to have an intercept. We're going to go to 1/10 speed now. So we're going to go 10 times slower. There's the intercept, very clear. So this is what you saw in the other video, but it was too fast for you to see. And notice there were 3 objects, and 2 of the objects emerge. And what you see behind is a persistent area of light, which is the hot gases left behind from the intercept. So we can see an intercept. And we didn't see any intercepts from unfortunately, it looks like we didn't see any intercepts from the other fireballs. In other words, what we should have seen is a sequence of intercepts. I'm sorry, I got a little distracted here because I think I sent you the non-updated video, because I had a video that I had updated, and I showed what you should be seeing. And what that video shows is little balls, little circles, illuminating the scene that you would have seen. In other words, what you should have seen if there was a 90% intercept rate is flashes of light overwhelming the camera in sequences, instead of just seeing this one event in the videos. Okay, why don't we go back here, and if you can go back now, because this is another interest, because we see, go back until we get to. Okay, let's just start playing. Just move to the. Just go forward. A little bit more. All right. Okay, here's. All right, so here again is the sequence. Just let it play. And then we're going to go to another example. We're going to see 4 explosions, I think 5 explosions on the ground, and we don't even see them. It's hard to see when you see it full time. So another point I'm making is that you can see the ground explosions, and you can tell a lot about what's going on by just looking for the flashes of light, although you need to slow things down. So here's the four ground explosions shown in real time. And we're going to see some very interesting events. First, we saw in slow motion, and we saw a ground explosion from the flash of light in the sky. We should see that. There it is, flash of light from the sky. That's from a ground explosion, so something was not intercepted. Then we see a second object coming in, and here we're going to see a very bright flash on the ground, which illuminates the clouds below. Now we see a third object, and look at that. All of a sudden, there's a cloud of submunitions behind it, and then we see a ground explosion. So that's a very interesting warhead because that's got submunitions on it and a unitary warhead. It delivered both submunitions and a high explosive warhead. And then we see a fifth explosion lighting up the sky. So here is the close-up of the tail end, and what we're seeing here is the ground explosion, and then with the submunitions, which are superheated, they're luminous, and those are small anti-personnel size, probably slightly larger than anti-personnel sized submunitions. Then we see the second explosion from yet another warhead, and we can see the luminous objects falling. Here again is an unintercepted missile over Tel Aviv, and there's the second event where Patriot dives to the ground. Then we're going to see another intercept. There it is. There's the intercept. Didn't even see it on the real time unless you moved frame by frame. And then we see the characteristic expansion and diminution of the warhead, and then it getting dimmer. But where are the other intercepts? We should be seeing intercepts all over the place. Wherever we're seeing missiles coming in, there should be big flashes in the sky dominating the whole video frame. We don't see that. We don't see these big flashes. There are no explosions. This is another replay of the same thing.